Hello and Merry Christmas. I'm sure you may be aware of what this video is going to be about and what I'm going to be talking about. It is this bad boy. We, us Bond fans and John Barry fans and film music fans have been waiting for this for 45 years. I mean, this to me, I think this is probably the most anticipated Bond score of all time. You know, this is the most wanted Bond score, and the reason why I'm going to go into. But with this Moonraker soundtrack, there's a lot of history to this, which has created a lot of mystery. There you go, I'm a poet and I don't even know it. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown. 1979, the film was released, and naturally and automatically to coincide with that, they then released the soundtrack on LP. That soundtrack was probably was the shortest Bond soundtrack at the time, just running in about the half-hour mark, and was the only Bond soundtrack which didn't feature the Bond theme. So when you listened to it, there was no clue that it was a Bond score because there was no Bond theme on it. That was nothing to do with John Barry, nothing to do with Eon. That was purely down to the record label, which I think was EMI. So they was the ones who selected what to put on it. Now, with everything, all the best pieces of music are not on the actual album, but as we know, that is now changing, because to get expanded Bond scores is something that I've been campaigning for a very long time. So to finally get these is just a dream come true. It's absolutely incredible. And to actually get the expanded release of Moonraker, that has filled in a massive void for us Bond fans. I mean, I've said this before, you know, when La La Land announced these new releases, that to me is just as exciting as Bond 26 news, which, as we now know, we've got to just forget about that, because I don't think anything's going to happen in the near future with that. But whilst there's no Bond 26, we are pretty much guaranteed that we are going to get releases of these. I mean, this, yeah, absolutely incredible. So Moonraker. So yeah, for 45 years we've had the LP album, which was very short and sweet, and all the best bits were missing. I mean, Moonraker is considered to be one of John Barry's finest Bond scores, alongside Her Majesty's and The Living Daylights. 2001, a chap called Nicholas Rain and the Prague Philharmonic Orchestra gave us a compilation CD called Bond Back in Action, and that included all the action cues from John Barry through to George Martin, Marvin Hamlish, Bill Conti, Michael Kamen, David Arnold, all them. Now, what made that even more interesting and kind of a little bit exciting is that he had included music which had never been released before. So he did the music that accompanied the Tarantula scene in Doctor No. He gave us Free Fall and Arrival at Chateau from Moonraker, and gave us John Altman's version of the Tank Chase that featured in GoldenEye. These weren't the original recordings. These were just recordings he did from scratch with his orchestra. Now, Nick Rain, I like him. He's done some great stuff. He's done a lot of John Barry film music. His kind of Bond music's a little bit hit and miss, because he tends to have the kind of habit of making his music a little bit more faster than the original, and it just doesn't sit with me, because in all honesty, I'm not a massive fan of covers. You know, you've got the originals, and it's just down to what you are used to. It's down to what your ears are accustomed to. And cover version, you know, and I think, you know, at the end of the day, I've got the originals. You can't go wrong with the originals. You know, so, I mean, no disrespect to Nick Rain, I like his work, but they're a little bit jarring. However, his work on the Moonraker, you know, the Arrival at Chateau and Freefall, brilliant. It was a little bit, tempo was a little bit quicker than the original, but still good. And that was a close, and, you know, back in the day when I had an iPod, I would select Arrival at Chateau and Freefall and just stick it on the Moonraker album in chronological order. That was the closest I was ever going to get to a complete score, because we got two extra pieces. to add to that. So that was 2001. Come 2003, and this is a bit which really excites me and makes my groin pulsate. Lucas Kendall came along, and he had a very low budget, small budget. He was given the task to expand 5 of the Bond titles and to remaster, I think, the following 9 or 10 titles. So he basically went into the archives, into the vaults of the studios, MGM and all that. And he, basically said in an interview that the Moonraker tapes weren't there. That then caused a great big internet myth, internet rumour, that the Moonraker tapes were lost. People said, oh yeah, they're burnt in a fire in Paris. It was all recorded in Paris, they're burnt, oh, we'll never see him. Obviously, that then kind of automatic would have, affected a lot of fans, because it's like, well, you've got one of John Barry's greatest scores, which is believed to have been destroyed. And it's that human sort of instinct and nature that, if there's something you can't have, you want it even more. So the anticipation and the frustration and the upsetness amongst fans was sky high, because they was like, oh, we're never going to get Moonraker. 2015, a chap called James Fitzpatrick, who's a very well-known person within the film music community, he began a Kickstarter project, and people donated money and stuff, and he was going to do a complete re-recording from scratch of the Moonraker score. Obviously, the people who donated money would then receive the CD in return. I never donated to this because I was a bit sceptical, because I thought, because I've kind of understood, that there was going to be right issues and stuff. And lo and behold, on the final hour, final minute, just as we were getting started, it was pulled. Lawyers, if there was Eon lawyers or MGM lawyers, I don't know, but the lawyers got involved. A few years after that, a few other people announced that they were going to basically do the same thing, and I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, good luck with that, because if Fitzpatrick's not going to do it, you ain't going to do it. Simple as. It never materialised. Obviously, and then came 2019, La La Land had planned to release Her Majesty's Moonraker and a License to Kill expanded editions for their respective anniversaries. 2019, No Time to Die was in production. The studios basically said no. All the attention, all the focus, all the marketing's got to be on No Time to Die. You cannot start advertising, promoting, doing stuff for the previous films. And it's very similar to Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick. Even though it's part of the same franchise, the studios could not or weren't allowed to promote Top Gun. Everything had to be on Top Gun Maverick. Same with Bond. So whilst we haven't got a Bond film, this is the golden opportunity where La La Land can just release as much stuff out as possible. Because as soon as Bond 26 goes into production, it's going to be stopped. But let's face it, with the news we got yesterday, which quite frankly isn't a surprise, and that's for another podcast, Bond 26, we've got to accept it, it's not going to happen. But I'm going to say now, it's not fucking Barbara's fault. I keep saying that. And I did say I was going to leave it to another podcast or another video, but now I'm going off on one. Leave Barbara alone. What the fuck do you think Barbara can do in between while sorting the dimmers out at Amazon? She's going to do other films. And quite right, so she should. Right? So leave her out of it. The issue has been with Amazon and always has been with Amazon. Right? I've said that from the beginning. Simple as. Anyway, that's that. So, 2019, so there's that hope. We know that Moonraker's on it. I think I might have mentioned back in the groups and the forums earlier this year when Goldfinger was released that, there's massive speculation that we would also get The Man with the Golden Gun because it's a 50th. And I think I might have said, oh yeah, there's a possibility we may get the Moonraker's 45th. Well, obviously, Black Friday, 29th of November, my God, didn't I have a fit? I read the email, I just went absolutely bonkers. I even rang the missus up randomly out of work just to get it off my chest, even though she couldn't be any more interested. But yeah, and it's here. But what makes it special is not only have we got music which has never been released before, we have got John Barry's original version, the original cut, if you like, the original, you know, his intention. We've got pieces which weren't even heard in the film, and you know, John Barry was famously hated how his music was presented in Moonraker and how it was dubbed. He wasn't at the dubbing session, and he kind of said that Lewis's Gilbert's ears was out for lunch. You know, Barry went to the premiere, saw it, and just sunk in his seats. He thought, what the fuck have they done? And too right, I can understand that, because obviously John Barry, he'd have been given the film, he'd have sat in his room, watched it through his little moviola, selected the scenes he wanted to score, bash some notes out of the piano, write it, do his arrangements, go to the studios, 90-piece orchestra, got the film playing, and then he would have just brought that sound out, brought the music out to match the film. Job done. And then some dimlers come along and decide to just slice and splice and just mash it up completely. I can understand his frustration, and you know, I'm kind of now sort of wanting the John Barry cut of Moonraker. I want Eon to reissue Moonraker, the film, with all of his music in, because it's just absolutely fantastic. I mean, the most noticeable ones for me is track 2, Last Leg, and Free Fall Sequence. I've actually played that over the scene, and it works beautifully. Yeah, I mean that track is little. It's different to what's heard of the film, but it still works. Vanini Glass and Bond Follows Holly. In the film, I think we only hear the first 30 seconds of that track, and then they cut it, and then we hear the later, you know, the latter part of the track. Again, I mean, if we had that scene with our music played out, brilliant. But the one I really like is the Funeral Barge, Venice Boat Chase. It's just genius. I mean, how on earth, you know, how John Barry can make the James Bond theme sound Italian is beyond me, but he's done it, and he's done it fantastically. And basically, you know, he would have scored the entire the entire boat sequence in Venice, and he would have put music over the part where his gondola turns into hovercraft, and he would have gone across St Mark's Square, and you know, the double taking pigeon, that chap pouring the wine on that head, you know, the dog looking, and Barry composed music to that, and it was the Bond theme with an Italian twist. Obviously, when it came to the film, they cut it and put I think it was Strauss or some classical piece over it, which is what we know. But I thought, you know what, I actually really like how he did that, because to my knowledge, I think that's probably the only time John Barry's actually gave the Bond theme a sort of an exotic location sound. You know what I mean? Like in Octopussy, he played the Bond theme when Bond was on the tuk-tuk taxi through India. He didn't give it the Indian sound. When Bond was, you know, in Paris in the taxi scene in A View to Kill, he never gave the Bond theme a French sound. He never gave the Bond theme an Oriental sound in The Man with the Golden Gun or the Connery films. But with this, he somehow just makes it sound Italian. And as daft as that sounds, you've got to listen to the track to kind of know what I mean. It's a really interesting, clever play on it as well, which I really, really love. But yeah, and then obviously we then, you know, get the latter half of the film. The only thing I can't say I'm a massive fan of, and I'm sorry if I offend the Paul Williams fans out there. First of all, I've never heard of Paul Williams. I've heard of Andy Williams. I think he might have done a good job. But yeah, we've got an early version of Moonraker with early lyrics, which apparently are really good, but I can't understand them because I can't really understand Paul Williams, because his voice is just going right through me. I don't know if he's got a lisp or if he's short-tongued, but it's just, I'm just so glad Shirley Bassey came along to do it. A lot of people are saying, yeah, you know, wouldn't it be cool if we could, like, AI it and make it sound like Frank Sinatra, because was this the song that Frank Sinatra was supposed to sing? But yeah, I mean, Paul Williams, I mean, my God, no. it's yeah. I mean, the lyrics. I can't even understand the lyrics. I mean, I have actually read the lyrics. The lyrics do sound much better and are good, but I just cannot, for the love of money, listen to it because of Paul Williams. And I'm sorry if that's offended Paul Williams fans, but you know we are entitled to opinions. But I just think it sounds bloody awful. So yeah, Moonraker. Not only is it expanded, but it also features bits which weren't even on the film. So yeah, I want us to have a John Barry cut of Moonraker. So yeah, it's a video I've been wanting to do for a while. But yeah, no, it's finally here. And as I say, you know, whilst we haven't got no Bond 26 news, these releases are just equivalent because they're so goddamn exciting. Yeah, next year we'll see what La La Land brings us. But yeah, we've got Moonraker. Thank you.